Are stocks going to crash after the election? Because a lot of the signals I'm seeing are adding up to a timing that could time this perfectly too, right after election day. So what is going to happen maybe going on with that? We're going to go into the signals that you need to see in order for that to come to fruition. We're going to try to be as good as we can. I know we're seeing these macro signals. I know we talked about it on Saturday. If you haven't seen that video, I highly encourage you to go look at that video, because you had a major signal on the weekly scale confirmed for the SPY and the Qs, and AMD did something crazy on the monthly. So you need to go click on that video, because having the macro side is always good to take into consideration, especially when investing, because these are, I think, the worst times in human history to invest in stocks, and the signals prove that right now. But we can always get that 1% chance to be wrong, so we have to be open to the bullish side here. So we're going to go over those signals with you as we get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta. Looking over at AMC and GME just for a moment to talk about them briefly, but then we're going to get into TLT, the dollar, and volatility. Let's get into it. The first thing I like to do on Sunday is just get you guys those updated weekly expected moves and the daily expected moves for Monday. So you'll notice that, well, it's not usually a good sign, or it is a good sign that more implied volatility is here if I have to zoom out a little bit. So this is the daily scale, and I still have to zoom out quite a bit to get that range on there. We notice that the upside move would be 589.86 to the upside. We do have 552.22. We did talk about the fact that we could get some kind of bounce like this for a big overall retest. I would be open to that, but the signals are looking interesting in the shorter time frame. So we're going to get you guys those daily expected moves as well. 575.76 to the upside. We have 566.32 to the downside for Monday. Now, these zones, this daily zone is a 68% chance, right, to land in this zone by the close. We use options data to actually calculate these numbers for you, and they've worked really well over the last few months. We've had some great trade setups, mainly when we take into consideration the weekly and the monthly expected moves. If you want all of those monthly expected moves, all the weekly expected moves every single week, and daily expected moves for Friday, join the Patreon. It can really help you out your trading, because we land in that area 68% of the time. So something that we want to notice tomorrow, and the reason I'm mentioning all of that at the beginning of this video is because we could see something like that set up tomorrow. Now, if you were here last week, we go live every single day, every single morning at the open, we go live. And we said, you know, this would be a great little cup. You notice that we actually got below that. So we got below where we actually would have formed that cup, got that handle, and then rejected to the downside. So what we need to pay attention to is, if we're making some kind of bigger cup, what could we really look at? Well, look where that daily expected bottom side move is. This is overall like a bearish-ish case for Monday, 566.32. If this selling actually comes in, this MACD crosses over, you'll notice that we have this really deep reading on the RSI. So if we're able to actually hold up at 566.32, you will be going to a level that you really are completing that cup, and you could get, because this is a very big cup, a big handle to maybe head up towards a sell zone. So that's something that I'm going to pay attention to early on in the week. If we actually turn down on the 30-minute, causing us to go down to that daily expected move, and maybe we cut that a little bit, but we can see a little divergence there, that would tell us that there is a chance, if that crosses up, for positivity. And positivity on what time frame? The 2-hour. You can see the 2-hour has been beat up for a little bit of time here, and it kind of makes seeing that cup and handle a little bit easier, right? We can see how that would really form. The key thing here is, we should expect, if we're going to head down, we can see that whip back up, and we can see that whip back down. Why? Because we have major implied volatility. Implied volatility, if someone is out there telling you that implied volatility means we have to crash down, It doesn't. Implied volatility means that you can have bigger swings in either direction. Now, since we are seeing a weekly macro signal as implied volatility is turning up, we're seeing a negative divergence, triple divergence on the SPY for the weekly scale. Once again, go check out that video, guys. It is great to have the macro side in your head while you're trading. So if something funky happens, you go, oh, well, this is randomly selling down right now, because the weekly scale might be taking over, those weekly charts, that weekly momentum. So bigger swings. Bigger swings is what overall implied volatility means. Now, does this have to be a massive move up? Not necessarily, because we also could argue that there is some kind of head and shoulders that could form at that level as well. But as we have not retested, I think you do have the opportunity to go at least test the level up in here one of our sell zones. Where I really think that resistance could be is in this area as far as selling goes. But for now, we have to see, does that 30-minute drop down and give us a trade setup actually for Monday? We'll try to post that to Patreon if that comes to fruition, and we will be live. So maybe if it happens in the morning, we'll be able to call it out live with you guys. All right, the Qs. First of all, let's get the weekly expected moves. 504.94 to the upside. Big move there, and you'll notice that would take us above the previous high. If we go above the previous high, I'm really thinking, hey, this might actually be some kind of corrective move, and we actually end up turning things to the upside at some point after we see a solid correction. Now, what we want to pay attention to here is that bottom side expected move as well for 69.92, but I think the more important thing is going to be these daily expected moves for tomorrow. 492.74 to the upside and 482.12 to the downside. Now, we already talked about weekly ranges. We talked about dailies, how it's a 68% zone. If it was a 100% zone, we'd be really rich. But what we want to pay attention to is the fact that our daily expected move, sorry, someone subscribed while I was filming, so thank you for subscribing. But we can see that 492.74 actually lands us right next to that pink line. That pink line is the yearly expected move, the annual expected move. So this is as high up as the Qs were supposed to go for all of 2024. And you're noticing our daily expected move for Monday being around there. We're going to get to that in a second, but just so you're aware, when we get outside of this pink line, bad things happen. Touch outside of the pink line, bad things. Pink line, rejection, and this is where we saw that little 30-minute reversal signal in here and rejection. So this is what we really need to be watching. And something I'd be watching is if that 2 hour just shoots up or something like that, or if a 30-minute keeps going higher and we actually end up outside of that, just watch out if that is able to reverse back down, right, into negative territory. That's going to be a key thing. Something I'm more leaning towards as implied volatility is increasing is the fact that we could go down to levels that would make sense for some kind of cup to form. We're still in this general area up in here, so we could just still be building liquidity on the smaller time frames to make a bigger time frame move. So what I want to pay attention to early on in the day is, does that 30-minute cross down? If it does it take us outside or test off of that daily expected move? And do we see divergence pop up? Because if we see something like this and we see something like this, that's very significant. And that little look, all this right here, that can turn up a 2 hour chart, and we can actually head up maybe for that retest. This could in some way be some kind of head and shoulders if we head down low enough, but I think it more so would look like a cup and handle for the Qs. As we get into Apple, we do give out those weekly expected moves for stocks like Apple and many more, right? We don't cover all of the stocks that we do give weekly ranges for, so go check it out. Maybe try it out for a month and see if you can help with your trading, right? See if that helps your trading. If you don't have a trading strategy around it or you want to learn more about that, we do have the courses down in the description. Those are going away after November, okay? Now, what we want to pay attention to with Apple, because Apple is a very important stock, is the fact that there is no reversal signal down here, which is very worrisome. And you've gotten to the level where that big cupping does make sense again. So this could make some kind of handle that actually turns to the downside. So what we need to watch here as that 30-minute is crossed up, does that continue to get positivity, right? Does that continue to get positivity? And is this just going to bounce up and then turn right back down? Is this going to turn up and turn right back down? Because this is very deep into negative territory. I'm really zoomed out on it, but if you really just barely zoom in, you can really see it's very low. So it's going to be very difficult to go in a positive trend. Notice I did not say impossible, okay? It's not impossible. It just says the probabilities add up to this is going to reject at some point, and I think our level of 225.84 could be very important. So as we pull up the 2 hour scale, if we're going to get a more prolonged bounce, you're going to see this 2 hour able to curl up, and we might go test that level that we kept getting rejection from. These rejections in here, these rejections in here, these rejections in here, and when we got outside of it, what happens? Bad things. What happens? Bad things, okay? We gap down the first time, and then we flush the second time. So I would really think if the 2 hour wants to push all the way up to these levels, that would be where the resistance comes in for Apple, but we'll see if that's even able to curl up. We will be paying attention to stocks live with you all week. Now, we talked about that downward move for the SPY in the Qs, but when you look at something like Tesla, it looks like it actually could bounce with the 2 hour here, right? We're by that center line. We could curl up into positive territory and see one move higher. Then we want to watch out for divergence. And the good part about weekly expected moves is if you make that divergence outside of it, the options market, the 68% chance is with you for some kind of drop. That's what we use for NVIDIA outside of the monthly expected moves. And it was a fantastic trade, right? We called it to a T. We were one of the only people really really saying, hey, I think we're going to see something bad tomorrow, and boom, something bad happens tomorrow. So that was a good thing that we were paying attention to. We use multiple stocks to give us a hit in the market, so make sure you tune into most, if not all, of the video. The reason that I'm saying we could experience some kind of 2-hour bounce here is because you have this very, very slight divergence here on the MACD. Now, if I blow up the RSI, though, there's a problem here, and you do not see it on the RSI. So what does that tell us about this bounce? If you've taken the course, you understand this, but we'll just let you know right now. If this actually does have one indicator but not the other, it usually does mean there's more probability for this to be some kind of bounce that turns back down into negative territory. Okay, so if this 30-minute is able to turn up and turn back down kind of quickly, not able to turn up that 2-hour, then we could expect negativity. But if that 2-hour is able to turn up, we might be in a prolonged bounce. We just have to be aware that that could be a lower high at some point. So we'll be paying attention to that for you. Amazon, great with the earnings there, right? Great price action with the earnings there. No real hints to this, right? Earnings is a 50-50 flip. So what's the thing I normally say about, things that have a big move with earnings? Everyone always wants me to look at it. Can we get into this? It's just seen a 10% move. Should I get it? One, we're just trying to help you out and teach you how to really read into these signals, and then you can learn how to do that with the courses and Patreon, and then you can come back and use me kind of as a second opinion, like your buddy that you go and you talk about stocks with, you ask some questions, you talk back and forth. That's really how I like things to be, and the 30-minute here is going to be important. So what I say with earnings is if you see a big move, that means this still could need to back off. This can go higher, it could go lower. So what we want to pay attention to is an opportunity. You always want to be more looking for things that are saying, I am a good trade. I am a good opportunity right now. Is this a good opportunity right now? No, it's kind of risky because if you take it now, this 30-minute could just cross over and you could pull back. So what you want to look for is the opportunity. And the opportunity is if that 30-minute pulls down by the center line and curls back up into positive territory. That is the more opportunity for a short-term trade. I'm not the biggest swing trader on a 30-minute. I really like to do 2-hour and above for any kind of swing trade, but that is what I'd be looking for. If the 2-hour actually does rotate down, I'd be a little bit cautious, but for the most part, it's pretty damn positive. So if we're going to see a bigger pullback here, you just don't want this to go negative. And that's about it for Amazon. NVIDIA is going to be a very, very important stock, and we haven't come down to really solidify that cup, right? And here we were talking about, oh, this could be a cup. Here's your little handle, and you're going to fall down. And we had that monthly expected move to help out. But now we're going into a fresh week. We're going into a fresh month, so we have to prepare ourselves for not having that extra info, okay, until some point in the week or maybe with the day. But we could say if this actually does cross down here, that could go make a divergence and get down to a point where solidifying that cup would be a good thing, and then maybe you get some kind of bounce for a handle. Now I'm mentioning a bounce for a handle because the price action would be going down, the MACD would go down for a little bit, but that might be able to cross back up, give you a divergence point. So there actually could be a little trade setup here for NVIDIA for a small bounce. But just note that if you look at that macro video we put out on Saturday, it's very scary to take these little bounces when this is potentially, and very high potential at this point, most likely already is some kind of major top. So it's very, you have to really manage your trade, okay? Really focus on, hey, I know I'm taking an upward play and the macro signals look bad. Let me really focus on this so I don't get screwed. Okay, that's going to be important, but that is something I'm looking for. But if I look into the structure right now, if I look into the price action and what it is doing, we overall do have a bullish thing that could be setting up here, right? We're almost getting that level of the cup and we're very controlled. We look almost flaggy here. So if this wants to continue to the upside and we actually see some kind of move up, one, we do have the weekly expected moves for you, so you can get those on your charts. But if this 2 hour is able to curl up, we should expect positivity. Now that does have a chance to be a lower high, but it is close enough to the center line where that could go make a new all-time high, right? We always say, people watched my video over on Saturday, and I told them multiple times, even if you feel very confident in a trade, give yourself that 1% that just says, hey, can I be screwed by this? How could this be bullish? How could I get screwed by this? Because that will really allow you to at least be open to the fact. And when you see those signals, you're not going to think like, they're not going to play out. You're going to think, hey, let me react to this maybe in some way. Let me really read into it. Am I seeing it on multiple tech stocks at the same time? Am I seeing it on the indices at the same time? That type of stuff will help you out in making a decision, and leaving that 1% will really help you. So pay attention if that 30-minute crosses down, because you could make a divergence. And here's the other thing, you could not. Right? You could not make that divergence, and we could head down towards 127.74 pretty quick. So you don't have to, but if that sets up, that would say that we're going to most likely see a 2-hour bounce. I think that will be a handle in some way, and I think this will cross back down into negative territory after the election. AMD, really, really risky for pretty much any type of play right now, but the monthly scale is turning over, suggesting that that should head to lower prices. Check out that macro video, because AMD is something you really, really need to see right now. But for the most part, this could be leading the market. And do I want to take a play with this when this is straight down? Well, we would say with the earnings that came straight down, you got a cookie, right? Where that got a bounce before earnings. That's great, because then you can take some profit and play with house money in some way. But for the most part, that is coming down. This is very deep into negative territory, very deep into negative territory. No reversal signals down there as far as the MACD and RSI goes. As we look at a 30-minute, you're getting... This is like squeeze-like behavior in the downward direction. That's what this is right now. When your MACD is just pointing to the upside, but you're actually turning down further, that just tells you, okay, I'm pretty much squeezing to the downside, meaning people are probably trying to call a bottom anywhere in this move, right? They're trying to take those calls, but the market maker is just like, nope, this thing's still flush. And people just keep hitting the sell button. This thing cannot catch a bounce on either category, right? So it's very, very bad to look at a stock like this and say, even if there's a divergence, I'm not convinced that that's going to be a good thing. It can be, but I would not be touching AMD for a long time, because that monthly's turned down. But it doesn't mean that you can't buy it later, maybe in a year or two, for very, very cheap prices. Meta doing some good stuff, right? Doing some good stuff, sees the burst higher, earnings, bad deal, right? So I believe in here we might have had some signals. Maybe we'll double check on that. But for the most part, earnings is a 50-50 flip, guys. Something that I learned early on. People ask me if I have big losses. I'm like, yes. One of my big losses very early on in technical trading was Zillow. I thought I knew everything. I thought I was fantastic. I thought I was the shit because everything was working out well. And then I did an earnings, which is a 50-50 flip, which is what I came to after losing, I think it was like $8,000 in 10 minutes or something like that. So just note, everyone out there has taken a big loss. If you have taken a big loss, something we say on this channel is, manage risk, because that will really help you out, really take control of your trades. But also we like to say it is always okay, because someone else has gone through that experience as well. There is a way back. Try to put yourself in a positive loop and not focus on the negative loop, and managing risk can really help you stay in that positive loop, help you stay in control. So something here we have to pay attention to is the 2-hour. Can that cross up? Okay, if that crosses up, it's close enough to positive territory to see a good move. I really think that this does not have the best chance of testing the high and going making a new one, at least this week. But if we get some kind of handle here, that's exactly what may be happening here, right? We might get some kind of little A, B, C move to the downside if that continues down, because we're reacting to a level where that could be some kind of tight cup and handle. So we'll pay attention to that. As we look into the 30-minute, we can see, does the 2-hour have a good chance to curl up? Well, that's kind of needing to create a stronger base in my book. And I would like that. I would really like to create some kind of tiny little double bottom here or something like that to give us that structure to head higher. And you notice we're drawing similar things on a lot of charts. That usually is a good sign. If one of them sets up and two of them set up, that 3, 4, and 5 are going to start to set up as well, which means we have a high likelihood to see a 2-hour bounce. Maybe if we head a little bit lower into Monday, we can see some kind of bounce into Tuesday, and then see what happens right after the election, because I think that is when things could get a little bit scary. AMC, huge implied volatility, and we give you that updated level every single week. So the interesting part about AMC, as we get that weekly expected move upside for you, so you can see the unexpected level, is look how much this is growing this week. Look how much implied volatility has grown into this week. And notice I zoomed out, so it's probably pretty high up, right? So if I click on this, it's going to be 521. You have to get through 521 to see something crazy. Now, do you have a chance of that? Yes, the daily scale is turned up. We talked about that, right? But the 30-minute is also turned up in positive territory after retesting the 5. This is where you can start to see more positivity. Should we expect the big move at any time? No. No, we should not. We should just play good signals, and this is suggesting that on Monday you can see an upward move from AMC. Notice that it is lining up with the exact moment where the market seems to be making a major top. Okay, so we have to be paying attention to these type of signals. If that 30-minute rotates back down, this thing might not be safe from some kind of crash. It does have earnings this week, so it has a major implied volatility. I think it's like 140% or something like that for this week. So it tells us that we can see some real whip around moves, but you got to break through 521 to see something crazy this week. As we go over into GME, one thing you're going to notice here that's different is the 30-minute is more negative, and the 30-minute has not crossed up yet. So has GME given us the signal to head higher here? Not necessarily, right? Not even on the 30-minute. And I believe the 2-hour has crossed down, so you might be in a bigger 2-hour pullback at this point. So just remember that. If the 2-hour curls down, you might be in a bigger 2-hour pullback, so maybe we want to see basing out structure. Now, we've held this level very well. If we start to break that, then that 2-hour might head lower. But you'll notice last week we did something crazy. That might have really messed people's money up, actually. And if this 30-minute crosses up, you do have the opportunity to head higher. But that's the problem, is now you're going into a new week and they might be prepared to fight the stock. Now, this does not have nearly, I think AMC has double the amount of implied volatility as GME right now, but you can see you need to break through 2446. That's the level you need to break through. Where does that lead towards? This high, right? So it's just saying, hey, this is where all that stuff, all that resistance can come in. If you can burst through that high, that would be a good sign. What do you need to happen in order to burst through? Well, you need a 30-minute or maybe an hourly as it's close to the center line. You need an hourly to turn up into positive territory, and you got a shot to take that out. And maybe you'll just see something crazy if you're able to break through 2446. Quick, I wanted to talk about TLT because this has the most implied volatility I've ever seen in TLT options. Okay, this is where the weekly range is bigger than I've ever seen in a long time. I do believe we get some Fed interest rate or something like that as well this week. So maybe people are at least right now trying to say, hey, they're not going to cut rates, and that's why these yields are going higher. They're saying they can't. And then they do, and maybe they do it in reaction to something bad that's going on. So that would be the overall, I think, bearish scenario there. But what do we notice from the MACD, from the RSI? Okay, we have major divergences down here. We're getting major divergences. I know this caused a management of the trade, right? I had to manage a trade here on Friday, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just waiting for that opportunity to head higher, right? So if this 2 hour is able to curl up, that could tell us a big move is coming. And guess what? This has a big move priced in, right? This has a very big, I mean, for TLT, a 4 or 5% move for implied volatility throughout the week is massive. So I'd pay attention to that, because the 2 hour having this amount of divergences, if that can go positive, you could see this daily turn up. And the thing about the daily, I know it looks like not at all the best, but there is a tiny little divergence here because we crossed up for a brief moment on the MACD, meaning momentum really tried to shift up, and then it failed very quickly. But that could be a sign of weakness in momentum. That could mean you have daily divergence down here. It still does with the positioning of the MACD. It leans towards a lower high, but if we're going to see something really bad happen, we might see people fly into safety very quickly. One thing to note here about the 2 hour, okay, because I did just say all that stuff that says this looks like it could be basing out. Has this curled up yet? No, it hasn't. Okay, so we should say that our indicator right now is telling us downside. But if we're able to catch some kind of bounce, that is where we can see positivity. Okay, we have to cross up for that to confirm. This has not confirmed yet, so downside is the most likely thing going into Monday unless we see some kind of turnaround, because you do not have any real 30-minute divergences. They're holding on the RSI. They're just not there on the MACD anymore, right? This is probably too spread out for us to read into it. So you might need a divergence in the near price action in order to see that upside move for the 2 hour. To get into volatility, and if you paid attention to the macro video all the way to the end, which is very, very good of you because volatility is very important, we were talking about how this could be a massive cup, this could be a massive handle, that also is a cup, and maybe we're about to get one more handle over on this area. And I actually did take a fib retracement of these moves, and almost every single time it's landed, I believe actually on both of these, it's landed in my golden pocket. So you can see my golden pocket here. If we really pull that across, you're going to notice, where did we go to? We hit the golden pocket and we head in the upward direction. So something I'm paying attention to is, are we going to do that again? And if I do that, right, I create that and I pull this over and I go like this and I go, where's my golden pocket? Well, it's right off of 20. It would be right by a gap fill. So this is adding up to something. And I think just how we know if this is going to have volatility come back in throughout the week is if this 2 hour can turn up into positive territory. And that could turn up right now and we could just see volatility, but I think it has the opportunity to pull down, maybe go down towards 20 and then curl up into positive territory, maybe happening early on in the week because volatility sees more bars. Volatility opens up at 2 a.m. my time, right? Central time. So it does have more bars in it to go off of. And it is a reading, it's not a price, but something that could be bearish, right? Or bullish, I guess, for the market, but bearish for volatility would be if that 2 hour goes down too far, you could actually curl down this daily chart. And if you curl down that daily chart, it doesn't mean it has to go down all the way down to the 200, but I think if we do cross down on that daily chart, we're going to test the 50. We're most likely going to test the 200 at that point. But something to notice about this is the crash signals are there. You're behaving like a bear market before we've even started one. You do have that 50 really whipping back around here, so it could be a good support to actually head higher for volatility. The dollar, and we noticed that there was a bunch of reversal signals, just squeezing, right? So you're going to see a bunch of divergences on this. You just want to be aware that the daily and the weekly, they just turned up. So when that weekly just turns up, you can squeeze and make a bunch of divergences on the shorter time frames. But we did lean into a pullback, and we said, watch if this is a positive correlation with the market right now. You'll notice the dollar came down, the market's come down. Okay, so we're still holding that, but then the dollar started to turn up. So if we keep seeing negativity in the market and the dollar keeps going higher, that could be a sign that more insiders are selling and we're about to see a rug pull. Okay, so that's something I'm paying attention to, but I'm also paying attention to if this turns into a negative correlation all of a sudden, because usually when the dollar is going up, that means people are selling stocks, moving it into cash, right? Moving it into the dollar. When you sell a stock, what are you selling it for? Cash, right? When you buy a stock, what are you buying it with? Cash. So the dollar is very important here, and it looks like to me if that negative correlation comes in where the dollar actually moves up and the SPY starts dropping, well, we've already been going up for a long time with the dollar, but we've also been going a lot upward direction with the SPY. So that's going to be very worrisome going into this week. We'll see if that actually happens, but I think that was something good to keep on your mind throughout the week. I think the main takeaway here is, are we going to see positivity out the gate, or are we going to see negativity and maybe set up some kind of base to actually get a bigger 2 hour bounce to really create that cupping with that handle? And we're starting to see divergences that could be forming on a lot of different charts. And once you start to see it on a lot of different charts, that's when you go, okay, I'm starting to smell something. My common sense is kicking in. Something here could bounce. So that's what we're going to pay attention to early on in the week. If you want to ask questions about the course or anything like that, any kind of question, you want me to look at a stock for you, if I have time, I like to look at stocks for other people during the live stream. So please join us for the live stream if you have any of those questions or related to anything to do with stocks. So thank you guys so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. You guys are the thing that keeps us going. You are really the thing that makes it so more people can get more help, can easily understand. And if people can just take away the macro side of things, at least they can learn how to invest at the right times. And this looks like the worst time in history to take a 1 to 2 year investment. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for liking, subscribing. You guys are fantastic. Honestly, I can't ask for a better community, and I hope to continue to be helpful for you guys. And I will see you Monday live. Peace.